Hello, Going Deeper folks. Good to see you. On Thursday, I mentioned that I might try for this series to do some video teachings because we're not gathering back together on Thursday evenings. I made no promises, but here we are. We're going high-tech, except it's pretty low-tech high-tech because it's just me, a lamp, and my phone. So we'll give it a try anyway. One of the things I'm hoping this week is that you'll begin to see the connection between your everyday work, again, work defined broadly, not simply as the things you get paid to do, but rather the energy, the creative energy you put into daily life. And the hope is that you begin to see that work as connected both to the character of God and the work of God, as well as His plans and His purposes in the world. Because if you can begin to make those connections in daily life, it absolutely transforms the way you think about what you do and the way that you engage the work that you do when you begin to understand that it's part of your calling in life. There's a woman by the name of Dorothy Sayers, who was a British essayist and novelist, and she wrote an essay called "Why Work?" And in that essay, she defined the biblical doctrine of work this way. She said, "Work is the gracious expression of creative energy in the service of others." Work is the gracious expression of creative energy in the service of others. That's a biblical view of what work is really about. Now, that view of work is absolutely revolutionary, see, because our modern view of work is very different. Our modern view of work tends to be work is what I do to get the money I need to do what I really want to do. The rest of the time, I make a living with my work so that I can spend then my money and my time doing the things that I actually want to do. And so the aim of work, in the kind of the modern understanding of work, is to get money or to get status for the benefit of self, whereas the biblical view of work is, how do I creatively use the energy and resources God has given me for the benefit of others in partnership with God. Two totally different views of work. Now, what happens as a result of the modern view of work, you may have a lawyer who does his work to get the significant paycheck, but he's not actually passionate about justice and passionate about partnering with God in His justice-seeking work in this world. Or you have a doctor who is not necessarily passionate about helping people, but instead is passionate about being or doing work that gives him a sense of value or identity or status in the culture. And when you're working that way, boy, it just utterly changes the motivation and the way that you engage your work. But if you have a biblical view of work, in a sense, this is part of an expression of the very character of God for God, the purposes of God in benefiting society. You're going to engage that work in a very different way. It's very interesting. Paul says something remarkable in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. He's writing to the Christians there, some of whom weren't working. Listen to what he says to them. This is 1 Thessalonians 4, beginning in verse 9. He says, "Now, about brotherly love, we do not need to write you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love each other. And in fact, you do love all the brothers throughout Macedonia. Yet we urge you, brothers, to do so more and more." So what is he saying? He's saying, you guys are great at loving. You really love well, and yet we urge you to love more and more. And then in the next verse, and it appears disconnected to us these two ideas because there's a period and there's a new paragraph, but actually this is all, what I'm about to read you is just the second half of the sentence. So he's saying, love more and more, and this is how. He says, make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, and to work with your hands just as we told you. So what is Paul doing there? He's connecting work with our hands to loving well. Why? Well, because when we understand the biblical view of work, our work is to benefit others. And so one of the ways that we actually benefit others and benefit society is through our work. It becomes actually an expression of our love. Have you ever thought about your work that way? That your work is one of the ways that you love others. You love others. And if you can make that connection in your work between the character of God as one who works and the calling of God to benefit society with the motivation of love, that is going to change how you work. It's going to change your endurance. I wrote a couple things down. It's going to change your endurance in your work. It's going to change ultimately your diligence in your work. It's going to change your sense of prayerfulness in the midst of the work that you're going to do. It's going to change your motivation in your work. If you see your work as an act of love for the benefit of others. So I encourage you this week, think about your work in light of God's work, in light of what it means to do God's work for the benefit of others, in light of the fact that you're called to love through your work. And I believe if you do that prayerfully, it's really going to transform how you engage the work that you do on a daily basis. And if you're in a job that is work that is not benefiting society in some way, it's time to look for a new job. All right, love you guys. Have a great week. May God just bless you and speak truth and grace into your life. See you later.